Hi, Kareem. Oh. Is this for me?
Does it have your name on it?
Yes.
Then it's for you.
So why's Ted called a meeting?
Don't know, really. But Mr. Smith was on the phone to him 4 times yesterday. And Ted's been looking a bit odd recently.
So that's new? So, what is this big meeting all about?
Oh, probably something terribly important, like spending less money on paper clips. I want to look at that report you've done on television. Is that all right?
Sure. Television educates, stimulates, and entertains. Television is a drug, a tranquilizer used to control and pacify the population. These two opposing views of television represent the extreme ends of a spectrum of views. But wherever one stands, there is no doubt that the box in the living room has become one of the dominant social influences of our time. In Japan and the United States, the average adult viewing of television is 4 hours a day. In Belgium, France, and in Hungary, it is around 2 hours per day. In the United Kingdom, around 2.5 hours per day.
That's fantastic.
Well, I think that television, over the last generation, has been the greatest instrument of social democracy in Western European societies. I think it's had more impact on citizenship, on giving people a sense of belonging to the whole society, on being full citizens. More impact even than the health services of Western European societies, more than the transportation system.
Our society in Sri Lanka is an agricultural society. It is a poor society, where 80% of its people live in the rural areas. Now, a characteristic of a rural society is our strong kinship ties of communal ties, of the absence of what in this society may be called individualism. Now, the first consequence of the impact, the first consequence of the introduction of television has been a tendency for people to get away from their communal relationships and their cultural ties, to sit around the box and become individualized atoms.
What television has done has been to provide evenly spread throughout our societies the pageantry of the society, the major political news events of the world. It's created an area of common illusion so that people laugh at the same jokes. They are aware of the same basic cultural content of the society.
They firstly see a way of life, the consumption of goods and commodities that are totally unavailable to them. On the one hand, this has made the people very dissatisfied and set in process political demands which are not within the capacity of the government to grant. This has brought in its wake social tensions, political tensions, which, not having the opportunity to find expression in the normal process, has resulted in, I wouldn't say it has been the primary cause, but it has contributed in a very large way to the Holocaust that occurred in my country during the last 2 months, when atrocities and social violence of a sort that we have never seen in our country before occurred. Now, I attribute, and not only I, many social scientists in my country attribute these social upheavals primarily, I would say, to the penetration of our society by television.
For third world countries, the problem of being culturally dependent for television and for cinema on Britain and America must be devastating culturally to them. And I think it is one of the principal problems of the late 20th century, because I think cultural dependence is as much a threat, perhaps it's even a greater threat to national sovereignty than was colonialism.
Television has been introduced in most third world societies for reasons unconnected with education or development, although that's the euphemism. They have been introduced for two primary reasons. One is prestige, in order for a government to say, we have introduced this new technology into our societies. And the second one, which is the more important one, I think, and that is to enable the presiding political dignitaries to be seen on television as often as possible. They value television as a medium which they think can be used for propaganda and for consolidating their own government's power. Now, it so happens that a television channel runs for a minimum of 5 to 6 hours a day, a minimum. Now, politicians can't fill these air slots or time slots. I mean, for 6 hours a day, there's a limit to which even a politician can talk. Right, they set aside another hour for what is called educational television, whatever that may mean, so that you're still left with about 5 hours of television. Now, what do you do with those 5 hours of television? You can't produce programs locally on that scale. For the reason that there aren't enough cameras to start with, there aren't enough cameramen, there aren't enough producers and directors. And if you had them all, still the government cannot afford the money with which to produce the program. The cheapest local program, a half-an-hour program, would cost anything up to $5,000 to $7,000. That's a very, very cheap program by your standards. Now, while the government is trying to find the resources with which to fill in 4 hours of television a day at something like $7,000 or pounds a half an hour, there is the salesman, the international rep, who stands at the door with top-class international program material. I wouldn't say top-class, you know, the kind of soap opera material. Selling at $200 per half-hour program.
The question is what those countries do with the imported material. How do they teach their societies to read that material? If you're looking at American Westerns, are you equipped really to decode an American Western, if you're not an American, and see what it means? Because then it's not destroying you. You're not just consuming it. You're using it, and you can use it and reject it.
It performs a very strongly negative role in that it gives the dictators and the elites in our societies a new tool. That is really the secret behind the introduction of television to most of our societies.
The way ahead is through education in the use of the mass media.
Perhaps it is only a matter of time before other nations replace Britain and the United States in their domination of world television markets. Meanwhile, the arguments continue.
Where there is a visible dearth of local skills, going into television is a very dangerous proposition. So, on the whole, we do not advise societies that do not have the social, economic, and financial capacity to go in for television to do so.
Mrs. Belmont.
But has Mr. Stenhouse invited me?
I'm inviting you, Mrs. Belmont.
And naturally, my cousin told the doctor the pills were no help at all. So he said goodbye to the doctor, and he decided to cure himself by going on a diet.
What kind of diet?
Carrots.
Carrots?
Carrots. For 3 months, he ate only carrots and drank only carrot juice. His discipline was amazing, monsieur.
Amazing. And what happened after 3 months?
He died, monsieur. He was only 84, you know. Oh, it was very sad. You know, all my family lived to a ripe old age. I remember my Aunt Gigi. She lived in Paris all her life with 17 dogs. Imagine, monsieur, 17 dogs. Big they were, enormous, like little horses. She used to wake up 6 o'clock every morning to take the dogs for a walk. But my Aunt Gigi, she was always losing things. She used to lose her handbag, her keys, her car.
Her car?
Oh, yes. One day, she left her car in a very big car park, and she couldn't find it again.
Well, perhaps it was stolen.
Oh, no, monsieur. Nobody would steal her car. Not with 17 dogs in it. Oh, it was a very big car.
Yes, it must have been.
The dogs were never seen again. My aunt died of a broken heart. She was 91 at the time. Oh, it was very sad.
Oh, what is the time, Pierre? Oh, look, it's getting late. I must get back to the office.
Very, very, very sad.
Oh, well, thanks, Pierre. It was a wonderful lunch.
Oh, it's a pleasure, monsieur. All my work is a pleasure. I don't do it for the money, I just do it for the pleasure.
Goodbye, Pierre.
Goodbye, monsieur. Monsieur, you forgot the key! Oh.
Where's Prodip? Didn't he receive my memo, Corin?
Yes, Mr. Stenhouse, I left it on his desk.
You should have handed it to him. Who told you to leave it on his desk?
You did, Mr. Stenhouse.
Oh.
Sorry I'm late.
That's all right, Mr. Chopra. Don't you worry about it.
Now, I've asked you to attend this meeting because I have some very important and frankly rather unhappy news to give you. You see...
Ted, Billy isn't here. Didn't you want everyone?
Well, yes, I did, but perhaps it's just as well that Billy isn't here. You see, well, of course, everyone else will be offered alternative work. But as for Billy, well...
Ted?
Well, what I'm trying to say is, it's the program. It's been taken off the air. Apparently our audience had been getting smaller and, well, they're going to replace us with a quiz show. It's called Family Fun. Sounds rather good, actually.
Sounds perfectly awful.
Why won't we consult it?
Oh, well, of course I wanted to, but you see, Mr. Smith, and then, well, you know how it is.
So the programme's going to end. But what about jobs?
Ah, that's no problem. Everyone will be offered work in news or current affairs.
Everyone?
Oh, well, Mrs. Belmont will, of course,
Oh, I
continue...
wouldn't want to work in current affairs. No, thank you very much.
What did you mean about Billy?
Yes. What about Billy?
Well, I'm afraid I couldn't... I mean, Billy will have to go. Of course, I fought hard for him, but,
I'll bet you did.
Well, no, of course I wasn't afraid. I knew what had to be done. First, I hit one of them like this. Karate chop. Kapow! Then I grabbed one of them and I said, one false move and you're dead. There was nothing to it, really. It was easy.
And, well, you see, I'm very sorry, Billy, and, well, what can I say? I'm sure you'll find another job.
Oh, but I don't want another job, Mr. Stenhouse. I came to tell you I'm resigning. You see, the bank's going to pay me a reward, a very big reward, enough to let me spend a year travelling around the world. I'm leaving next week.
Oh, Billy, I do think these fantasies of yours are very silly.
But this isn't a fantasy, Mr. Stenhouse. This isn't a fantasy. Not this time. And now, if you'll excuse me, before I go, there's something I want to see on the video.
Now let's see if we can shock Bernie Raystrick. I'll tell him we're holding his sister for questioning.
Do you think he knew she was leaving the country?
I expect we'll find out. First, though, I want you to contact the solicitors that dealt with our father's will.
You think it was about the money?
I want to know exactly what happened to the money he left them.
I've said everything I have to say.
Oh, do sit down, Mr. Raystrick.
What a waste of time.
Please.
We've just been talking to your sister.
Where is she?
Well, she's here with us at the moment. Don't worry. She's all right. Yes. Yes. Uh-huh. Did he? Yes, fine. Thanks very much. Now, Mr. Raystrick, when you went to your sister's house and argued with her husband...
Oh, no.
What did you argue about? Money?
Why should I argue with him about money?
Because when your father died, your sister agreed to have her share of the money transferred into a bank abroad, into Matthew Gibbs' account.
That had nothing to do with me.
But when Matthew Gibbs wouldn't let her get at the money, she asked you to do something about it. At 7:45 on the evening of the murder, who was it that you telephoned?
Come along, Mr. Kelly.
Mrs. Gibbs, there's one thing I don't understand. Your husband was found dead at the hotel, and yet his car was still outside your house.
I drove him to the hotel.
What did you find when you got back from driving your husband to the hotel?
Well,
Did you perhaps find post had arrived?
I can't remember.
Reminder.
There was a letter with details of your husband's bank account overseas. If you say so. You found out that you couldn't get your money without his agreement while he was still alive.
You waited till the evening, then you took your husband's gun, went back to the hotel, and shot him.
Detective Chief Inspector Phillips, please. First on your right.
Kelly, sir.
If I'm supposed to be so clever...
Yes?
Then why would I go to a hotel to kill him, where I might be seen, when all I had to do was to wait for him to come home again?
If you'd shot him at home, then the first suspect would have been you. But you shot him at a hotel. And then you waited for us to find out about the video business and start looking for airline pilots and anyone else who might be involved.
Well, I am clever then, aren't I?
Yes, Mrs. Gibbs, I think you are. Everything went to plan, except for a bit of bad luck. Your brother was staying at the hotel that night. You didn't know that until we told you. You found out that your brother had telephoned you at the time of the murder and couldn't get a reply. You were out at the hotel. That's when you realized something else might be wrong and you decided to leave the country.
I was going on holiday. In fact, I still am going on one.
No, come on.
I beg your pardon?
We know you killed your husband. We know why you killed him, and we know how.
You've got no witnesses. You've got no evidence.
We have. A waiter called Kelly saw you coming from your husband's room at the hotel.
It was Kelly's evidence that forced her to confess.
Why didn't he tell us at the beginning he'd seen her when we first questioned him?
He wanted to be away from us as quickly as possible, with all the money and credit cards he'd stolen from Gibbs.
So he was glad to lose his job.
He made sure he lost his job.
And he hoped we'd think the murderer took the money.
Yes. Only you panicked. Decided to take a trip abroad, using Gibbs's credit card.
Well, I always had my suspicions about Kelly.
Maxwell?
Hmm?
Would you like to see a film tonight?
Yes.
Good. Then let's go down to the station and look at some videos.